mouse deer. Imagine this, an animal so tiny it could almost fit in your backpack. Yet farms across Southeast Asia are making thousands of dollars a month raising it. No, it's not some rare Pokemon or a guinea pig with a trust fund. It's the mouse deer, also known as the Chevrotain. And despite its name, it's not a mouse and it's not really a deer. It's basically nature's weird little prank that just so happens to be one of the most profitable miniature livestock on the planet. These creatures weigh just 4 to 8 pounds, stand less than 20 inches tall, and look like a mashup between Bambi and a rabbit who's had one too many espressos. But don't let their adorable looks fool you. These pint-sized animals are part of a multi-million-dollar industry. From exotic meat delicacies to high-end breeding farms, the mouse deer has quietly become a superstar in agriculture, especially across Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia. So how does such a small animal generate such big profits? And what does it take to actually raise them successfully? Join FactoryX as we're going deep inside the world of mouse deer farming. By the end, you'll know exactly why this rare animal is being bred by the millions, how farmers are cashing in, and why conservationists are both fascinated and concerned. Habitat and enclosure setup, building a tiny fortress. Before we dive into diets and profits, let's talk real estate. Because if you're going to raise mouse deer, the first thing they'll need is a cozy, stress-free home. Unlike goats or cattle, these guys aren't looking for open pastures. Think more along the lines of a miniature jungle gym with good security. Each mouse deer requires about 50 square meters of space for 3 to 4 individuals. Now, you might be thinking, that's a lot of land for something the size of a small dog. And you'd be right. But remember, these little creatures need room to hop, dig, and explore. Otherwise, they get stressed. And just like people, stressed out mouse deer don't eat well, don't breed well, and don't exactly make you money. The perfect enclosure. Wire mesh walls. Sturdy and tall enough to keep predators out and mouse deer in. Think Jurassic Park, but for creatures the size of a loaf of bread. Soft soil base. Why? Because mouse deer love to dig. A hard concrete floor would make them feel like they're trapped in a parking lot. Soft soil mimics the forest floor and keeps them relaxed. A greenery and shade. Plant trees and shrubs around the enclosure to give them natural cover. This not only reduces stress, but also helps regulate temperature, like installing leafy air conditioning. Climate control. Mouse deer are tropical animals, so their sweet spot is between 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit with humidity levels hovering between 60 to 80%. Too dry, and their skin and digestion suffer. Too wet, and you're looking at pneumonia season. That means shelters are non-negotiable, especially during monsoons. Farmers usually build shaded wooden huts or roofed lean-tos, so the animals can stay dry while still feeling outdoorsy. Here's the funny part. Mouse deer are shy but also surprisingly dramatic. A sudden loud noise, a barking dog, or even a farmer approaching too quickly can send them bolting. So, enclosures are often designed to minimize outside disturbance. Feeding and nutrition, the mouse deer buffet. Now let's talk food, because keeping mouse deer healthy and profitable starts with what's on the menu. And spoiler alert, these little guys eat a lot more than you'd expect for their size. A single mouse deer can munch through 2.2 to 4.4 pounds of fresh food per day. Multiply that by a herd, and you've got a buffet line that rivals a Las Vegas casino. What's on the plate? Fresh greens. Their diet staples include cabbage leaves, lettuce, and Napier grass. Basically, the salad bar at every vegan cafe. Pellet feed. While greens are the main course, pellet feed provides vitamins, minerals, and proteins to balance their diet. Think of it as their daily multivitamin, except crunchy. Clean water. Each animal drinks about 1 to 1.5 liters, 34 to 51 ounces daily. Farmers set up continuous water systems, because nobody wants a dehydrated mouse deer fainting in the middle of summer. Why diet matters? The quality of food impacts everything, from growth rates to reproduction cycles. Bad feed means slower growth, weaker immune systems, and higher medical costs. Fresh greens and balanced pellets not only keep the animals healthy, but also ensure their meat is tender, flavorful, and ready for high-end markets. And here's a surprising fact. Mouse deer aren't picky eaters, but they are sensitive. Spoiled greens or moldy feed can trigger digestive issues faster than you can say upset stomach. That's why farmers are extra careful with storage, rotating stock daily, and ensuring water troughs are always clean. Quick question for you. If you had to raise an unusual animal for profit, mouse, deer, bamboo rats, crocodiles, or something else, what would you pick and why? Drop your answers in the comments below. Your ideas might inspire the next video. The costs of farming, breaking down the mouse-deer economy. So let's get real. How much does it actually cost to raise these little cash cows in disguise? Many people assume tiny animals equals tiny costs, but that's not the full story. Mouse deer may be small, but their expenses scale surprisingly quickly. On average, farmers report $200 to $300 per month in total care costs for a modest herd. That includes feed, pellets, supplements, water systems, and health monitoring. For a startup farmer, this may sound high, but when each adult animal can fetch premium prices on the meat or exotic livestock market, the math works out. Expense breakdown. Food and supplements. Fresh greens, pellets, and vitamins make up about 60% of the monthly cost. Think of it like running a 24/7 salad bar. Healthcare, vaccinations, deworming, and the occasional vet visit eat into another 15 to 20%. Preventative care may feel pricey, but it saves money down the road by avoiding outbreaks. Infrastructure and maintenance. Enclosures, shade covers, and soil upkeep round out the remaining expenses. Farmers often reinvest here because stress-free animals equals higher reproduction and faster growth. But here's the kicker. Even with these costs, the return can be enormous. A breeding mouse deer can sell for hundreds of dollars, and mature animals raised for meat? We're talking up to $200 to $300 per pound in certain markets. That means a single animal can pay back months of expenses with just one sale. For farmers in Southeast Asia, where land and labor are more affordable, mouse deer farming is considered a high-value niche investment. Unlike cattle or pigs, they don't require massive barns, extensive grazing land, or tons of grain feed. The model is compact, efficient, and surprisingly profitable. Health and disease prevention, keeping the herd happy. Now let's talk about the less glamorous part of farming, keeping your herd alive and healthy. Mouse deer are hardy little creatures, but like any livestock, they're vulnerable to certain diseases. And here's the scary part, because they're raised in relatively small enclosures. One sick animal can spread illness like wildfire. Common health challenges. Pneumonia, often triggered by sudden shifts in temperature or high humidity. A poorly ventilated enclosure during rainy season is basically a recipe for sniffles. Digestive issues. Spoiled food or weak digestive systems can lead to diarrhea, which is dangerous if not treated quickly. Parasites, internal worms, ticks, and mites are all common threats. They not only make animals uncomfortable, but can slow growth and reproduction. Prevention is everything. The golden rule in mouse deer farming? Prevention is cheaper than treatment. Farmers routinely vaccinate, deworm, and inspect their animals daily. Pens are cleaned thoroughly, leftover food is removed before it ferments, and soil is kept dry to avoid mold growth. Think of it this way. A mouse deer may be small, but when one gets sick, the cost of treatment can outweigh its economic value. That's why good farmers run their farms more like laboratories, tracking temperatures, monitoring humidity, and keeping records on every animal's health. And because these animals are sensitive, stress management is considered part of healthcare. Too much noise, overcrowding, or poor feeding schedules can suppress their immune system. The solution? Calm environments, predictable routines, and occasionally, a little background greenery to keep them feeling safe. Breeding and reproduction, multiplying the profits. Here's where mouse deer farming really shines. Forget cows that take months to breed or elephants that gestate for nearly 2 years. Mouse deer are fast breeders. And in farming, that's money in the bank. A female mouse deer has a reproductive cycle of just 30 to 35 days, meaning they can breed multiple times a year. The gestation period lasts around 3 months, and while the average litter size is only 1 to 2 babies, survival rates are high thanks to dedicated maternal care. The early weeks. Newborns are tiny, barely larger than a smartphone, but they quickly adapt. For the first 4 to 6 weeks, they nurse and stick close to their mothers, learning how to forage and survive. By the time they're 6 weeks old, they're already exploring, moving independently, and testing out solid foods. Independence and growth. After weaning, juveniles still stay close to their mothers for comfort, but their independence grows rapidly. Farmers monitor them carefully during this phase, ensuring they get enough food and aren't bullied by older herd members. Here's the fun fact. Despite their size, mouse deer are surprisingly agile. Juveniles can dart and hop with rabbit-like speed, which makes managing them both amusing and occasionally frustrating. Farmers have to be quick on their feet, or risk a pint-sized Houdini escaping under the fence. Business and profitability, turning tiny deer into big money. At this point, you're probably wondering, okay, this sounds cute and all, but where's the money? Well, here's where mouse deer farming moves from quirky hobby to serious business. Across Southeast Asia, mouse deer farming has exploded because the economics make sense. With their fast reproductive cycle, low space requirements, and premium market value, these animals have become a high-profit niche in agriculture. The market for mouse deer. Exotic meat trade. Mouse deer meat is considered a delicacy in parts of Asia. Its flavor is described as tender, slightly sweet, and similar to venison, but with a more delicate texture. Because it's rare, restaurants and specialty markets can charge premium prices. In some areas, it fetches $200 to $300 per pound, making it one of the priciest meats you'll ever come across. Breeding stock sales. Farmers can also profit by selling live mouse deer to other breeders or collectors. A healthy breeding pair can bring in hundreds of dollars, creating a steady income stream. Exotic pet industry. In certain regions where it's legal, mouse deer are kept as unusual pets, prized for their size and shy, quirky personalities. This is still a niche market, but it adds another revenue avenue. Cultural and culinary value, from forests to fine dining. Now let's talk about where all that profit comes from. The cultural and culinary demand for mouse deer. Across Asia, mouse deer aren't just farmed for novelty. They've been part of local traditions and cuisines for centuries. Mouse deer is a delicacy. In many Asian cultures, mouse deer meat is seen as a status symbol, something you don't eat every day but bring out for special occasions. Its rarity and price tag make it a luxury dish, often reserved for festivals, weddings, or fine dining restaurants. Some chefs describe the flavor as a cross between venison and rabbit, lean, slightly gamey, but tender enough to melt in your mouth. Because of this, it's often grilled with spices, stir-fried with lemongrass and chili, or slow-cooked into stews where the meat absorbs aromatic herbs. Popular preparations. A grilled mouse deer, marinated in garlic, ginger, and chili, then roasted over coals until smoky and tender. Stir-fried with lemongrass, a fiery favorite, combining the natural sweetness of the meat with the kick of spices. Dried and preserved. In some regions, mouse deer meat is dried for long-term storage, creating a chewy, flavorful snack. Cultural significance. Beyond the kitchen, mouse deer hold cultural importance. In Indonesian folklore, the cancel mouse deer is a trickster figure, small, clever, and always outsmarting larger animals. This cultural symbolism boosts their appeal as a farmed species. Not only are they profitable, but they carry heritage value too. Here's the bottom line. People pay top dollar for what they can't easily get. Unlike chicken, beef, or pork, mouse deer meat is rare. Its cultural ties and reputation as a delicacy elevate it into the luxury food category, keeping demand high. And as gourmet dining and exotic food trends continue to grow, mouse deer farming is only set to expand. Conservation and challenges, the mouse deer balancing act. Now, before you start dreaming about building your own mini Bambi empire, let's pump the brakes and talk about the challenges. Because while mouse deer farming is profitable, it also comes with risks, both for farmers and for the species itself. Population pressures. Wild mouse deer populations have been under pressure for decades. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, some species, like the Javan mouse deer, are listed as vulnerable, with wild numbers hovering around just 5,000 to 10,000 individuals. In Java and Sumatra, wild populations may be as low as 250 to 2,500 individuals due to hunting and habitat destruction. That means conservationists are walking a fine line. How do you farm and profit from a species without pushing its wild cousins closer to extinction? Threats to wild populations. Illegal hunting. Mouse deer are small and easy to trap. Poachers often target them for bushmeat or the exotic pet trade. A deforestation. As tropical forests are cleared for palm oil, farming, and urban development, natural habitats shrink. Competition from invasive species. In some regions, non-native animals compete for food and space, further squeezing mouse deer out of their natural environment. In short, mouse deer farming is proof that big profits really can come in small packages. From the moment they're born to the time they're sold for meat, breeding, or pets, Every step is an exercise in balancing economics with ecology. And here's the wild part. These tiny animals, barely the size of a house cat, could be worth more per pound than premium cuts of beef, tuna, or even lobster. Talk about punching above your weight class. Would you ever consider raising an unusual animal like mouse deer if the profits were high enough? Or would you stick to more traditional livestock like chickens, goats, or cattle? Drop your answers in the comments. I'm curious to see what kind of farmer you'd be. And of course, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. We've got more incredible documentaries on rare farming practices coming your way, from bamboo rats to crocodiles to giant groupers. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the smallest animals can teach us the biggest lessons about farming, culture, and survival. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of food and farming.